Some breaking but expected news this afternoon for the Dallas Cowboys. They are parting way with two former starters, wide receiver Michael Gallup and linebacker Leighton Vander Esch. Both players are being released. The Cowboys had tried to find a trade partner for Michael Gallup. They were unable to do so. The contract involved, likely a sizable reason for that. He would have been due $9.5 million this year if the Cowboys had traded him to a new team. The new team would have paid that. He had a $4 million roster bonus that was due, or base salary that became guaranteed, after Saturday. The Cowboys were not going to go down that path. It didn't make any sense for them to do so. They handled the Gallup stuff better than they did the Amari Cooper stuff, choosing to move on from him. Vander Esch, I feel like the retirement announcement is not far behind. The release came with the failed physical designation, so the neck is still the neck there. A little surprised retirement thing didn't come first. Not sure how much it really would have mattered. This might be the Cowboys' way of allowing Vander Esch to pocket a little bit extra money. We'll break that down here in a little bit. Let's go to the Gallup one first. What is your we'll come back to that actually, because I know it's an at-home video. I meant to mention that. It's a Friday. I'm off Friday. Thank God Olivia's still asleep and she didn't wake up. Taking a good nap for once here. News happens though, we find a way to cover it. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button for me for more free Cowboys YouTube videos. I have a video for you guys tomorrow planned. We also have the top free agents out there also on the channel from earlier this afternoon / morning, depending on which time zone you guys live in. So hit that sub button if you haven't already. Look, both of these moves are profoundly expected. We'll spend more time here on Gallup. He just wasn't producing in the way that you needed him to produce. He had not been the guy the Cowboys thought he was going to return to being following the injury. And I think if they could do it over, they would not handle it the same way. I mean, he's been a sub 500 receiver. Injury's a factor there, obviously, for the past couple of seasons. They had to move on from Michael Gallup. It did not make sense to keep him on the roster. Maybe he could have tried to take a pay cut, and that could have been doable, but I don't know if that was really going to be a valid option in the end for Dallas with the way the contract is set up. So moving on from Gallup was absolutely the correct path. Now, of note, the Cowboys have made Gallup a post-June 1st cut. This move saves the Cowboys $9.5 million in salary cap space this upcoming season. They would not get that, though, until after June 1st. So if you're wondering, how are the Cowboys going to pay for their draft picks? They got no salary cap. There you go. They just freed up $9.5 million. That is a significantly more than what they would end up needing from that perspective. Pay cut might have been an option, but not the path those teams, the Cowboys chose to go down. Of note, this will result in an $8.75 million cap charge for Gallup in 2025. That's okay, because whatever you don't spend, you're going to roll it over. You'd rather have $10 now against a $200 million cap or $200 budget, made that up, versus $10 next year against a $250 cap. It's just, you have the money now. So give me your one-word reaction to the Cowboys cutting Michael Gallup. Sound off for me with the pinned comment of today's video, especially if that ad comes here on YouTube. So now we look at the Cowboys wide receiver room. We'll come back to Vander Esch here in a little bit. The reality is here for the Cowboys, I'd love to get one more receiver. You have CeeDee Lamb. You, in theory, will work something out with him later on. We'll see on that front. You will have an opportunity to potentially draft somebody. Brandon Cooks is back under contract. He's not a free agent, by the way. Seen that a few times. So that is good news for the Cowboys. Jalen Tolbert could be wide receiver 3. Doesn't really get me all that excited, but he was playing at the same level Michael Gallup was, and he cost you a fraction of the salary cap cost from that perspective, which is certainly pretty darn valuable. Then it's guys like Kevontae Turpin, Jalen Brooks. In an ideal world, you fill your other needs. You find an offensive lineman. You find a way to bring back Tyron Smith. We'll see if that actually ends up, being the case. I am anxious about the Jets. The longer that goes on, the better chance you have for it happening in the end. You add in some defensive line help, both DT and defensive end. And if a receiver falls to you in round 1, round 2, round 3, whatever, you do it. Because once you get to the 5th round, like, are you really going to get a better player than that Turpin, Brooks, Tolbert trio? I'm not so sure. And maybe you'll be able to find somebody out there in the free agency market later on, with Cedric Wilson no longer being an option. So I would like to add a wide receiver if the right guy is available. I don't want a guy. I want a good player, an impact player. So we'll see what happens in April in the NFL draft. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description. Prize Picks has offered some NFL season-long options for you guys, by the way. So you can do Dak Prescott, you can do CeeDee Lamb catches and touchdowns, etc. They've got specials available as well. And they've got PGA Tour stuff, which did not go very well for me. Justin Thomas not stepping up and Jordan Spieth not playing well makes me fairly sad from that perspective. But there's a lot of options for you guys on Prize Picks. So that link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. It's daily fantasy made easy. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Over now to the Leighton Vander Esch decision again. This just makes sense. I don't think there's a likelihood of Leighton Vander Esch being able to play football again. It's just not. This wasn't going to be reasonable with the neck injury, and I'm a little surprised they didn't retire first, because the comments made by Jerry were kind of clear on that front there. This move should save the Cowboys just over $2 million in salary cap space. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's about what the cap hit ends up being for Eric Kendricks, maybe a little bit more for Kendricks from that perspective. But of note, and maybe this is why the Cowboys did this, Vander Esch had $1 million pocket change of his salary being fully guaranteed. I don't know if he had retired first, if he would have been able to pocket that. And you're going to do right by a player who, his career is unfortunately over, if that ends up being the case. I'm not sure on that, but that's the logical thought process through my head there. So will Leighton Vander Esch ever play again? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and get those predictions in for me in the comment section of today's video. I think we all knew Vander Esch would not be on this football team. It just did not make sense for them. The injury statuses were just very far too obvious. It just no way is going to be able to go. It's why you needed a veteran linebacker, right? Because you knew you weren't going to have Vander Esch on your team this upcoming season. So banking on Eric Kendricks, making a real impact for this team. Hopefully him at the mic, that middle linebacker spot, results in DeMarvion Overshown and the boosts for Damone Clark being better. I think those guys can play weak side linebacker. Again, not opposed to drafting somebody, because Kendricks is on a 1-year deal. Clark is getting near the end of his contract. Overshown's coming off the ACL. If the right guy is there, I'd love to do it. I also probably would draft somebody on day 3 just for depth. Although at a certain point, keep throwing draft picks at day 3 linebackers. Some point you're going to hit, right? You'll come out on top. So one more question for you guys. Which release makes you feel worse on the inside? MG for Michael Gallup, LVE for Leighton Vander Esch. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Two different sides, right? Like Vander Esch, I feel, Vander Esch and Gallup, I both feel injuries really impacted you from that perspective. He just didn't play well. Neither guy played well. Vander Esch was doing okay before the neck injury reared its ugly head, but he was never the same guy he was in his first season, And Gallup was not remotely the same player that he was at the beginning of his career. That vertical threat, he was always already never a great separator, and then after the ACL it was really bad. And it's telling, I think, when, especially before they benched him, hey, there's a worse completion rate and higher interception rate when throwing to Michael Gallup. And that was probably a wide receiver issue in the end. I don't know if they'll ever say it, but even though, not this past year, but the one before that, when Dak had all those interceptions, I think even the ones that weren't clearly Dak's fault, that were like clearly on the receiver because it was a drop, I think there were still several of, hey, Gallup's not doing the thing he needs to be doing and running at the right depth. Now, they're not only the number 6, there's no reason to body a guy on his way out. But if you ever got him, off the record, I think they'd kind of lay that one out there. But you don't want to also say that when he was back on the team. So the news of the day: Gallup and Vander Esch have been released. Their time in Dallas is done. We will see what ends up happening with Michael Gallup, but his time no longer with the Cowboys. I'm sure he'll find a spot. Patriots actually do make sense for him, but a trade was always highly unlikely. I will give the Cowboys some credit for trying, though.